Let's talk about soils. Heyo, homeowners, gardeners, and landscapers. My name is Hudson, and today we're going to be talking about soils. Specifically, three types of soils. We're going to talk about sand, we're going to talk about silt, and clay. Now, soils are important because depending on what kind of soil you have in your yard and garden, that determines how your plants are going to grow and what kind of nutrients they're going to be able to access and unlock. Let's look at sand versus clay. If you have a speck of sand and a speck of clay next to each other and you blow it up till the sand is the size of a basketball, the speck of clay will still just be a speck. That's because clay is super tiny and fine while sand is really granular. It's basically on a microscopic scale, like tiny rocks bumping together. Silt is somewhere in the middle, but here's the difference between all three. Going down from sand to silt to clay, each of those will hold more nutrients and will drain less well. So let's start with sand. It's basically a large boulder or some rock that's been ground down to a very fine particulate. But nutrients don't really tend to cling to rocks, and water is just going to run through sandy soil. So depending on what you're planting, if you're planting in sandy soil, it's probably going to need a lot of water, and it will need to like to be a little more arid and dry. Now if we move on to silt, kind of everything works really well in silt. Silt is found next to riverbeds, and it's where rivers have just washed some nice loam or decomposing material along with sand together, and it drains moderately well. The deltas of most rivers are very green and lush because they are composed primarily of silt. Now there's a reason that your coffee mug is made out of clay, and it's this. Clay does not drain well at all. Because of its very fine microscopic texture, it can pack super tight and be actually completely water resistant. That's why you can make pipes out of clay, coffee mugs out of clay, and your fine crockery. There's also a reason that your crockery isn't made out of sandstone. For one, that would be horrible on your utensils, but also it would let all of the water drain right through it. So clay, while it is not great at draining water, is really great at holding nutrients. If you were to blow up a clay particle until it was the size of my hand, you would notice that it had all these little fingers. And what these little fingers can do is they can hold nutrients. Nutrients can get lodged in there, and plants can access them more easily because the nutrients don't bleed right through the plant's root zone to where the plant would have to work too hard to get to them. For this reason, you don't have to put fertilizer down so much on clay. All right, let's talk about fertilizers. If you are growing a lawn and garden, how many times should you apply and what kind of fertilizer should you use? Considering that they can grow plants in test tubes without having any soil should tell us that it's really about the nutrient access that your plants have and lack of air on the roots, because air is death to roots, and death to roots equals death to the plant. So if you can grow a plant in a test tube, that means that you can grow a plant in really bad soil, given that you are giving it the right water and the right nutrients. Now, nutrients are more like food for the plant. I know whenever you're watering plants, people will always say like, oh, you're feeding the plant. And that's not true. You're giving the plant water. You're not feeding the plant. When you take a drink of water, it's not food. What this should mean for you is that based on the soil that you have in your yard or landscape, you should be applying fertilizers at different rates. If you have a lawn and landscape that is clay soil, that's going to hold nutrients a lot better, and you'll probably only need 3 applications of fertilizer. If you have sandy soil, you're going to need more like 6 per year because all those nutrients are going to wash around those boulder-like sand particles. Likewise, with clay soil, you're not going to need as much water as consistently. If you need help with your garden or landscape, then I have a gift for you. In the link below this video, or by hitting the QR code in the corner, you can get my free step-by-step guide for how to take your landscape from start to finish, whether you're working on design, installation, maintenance, or just getting inspiration to do it. And that's all from me today on this basic intro to soils.